So, I wanted to do a podcast. I think it's something that I've been like talking about for a long time. I just feel that right now in my life, it's just, it kind of just came together. So basically, what I'm doing in my life right now is I'm doing a lot of stuff for me. And one of the projects that I'm doing is called 12 House. And off the back of that, I wanted to create this podcast. So it's all about helping people to find tools to help themselves. Because I think, we can have conversations, we can talk to people, but, people really need to understand for themselves what it is that's going on for them to be able to bet themselves. And you, Renell, were someone in my life that really kind of helped me through my time of when I was discovering myself. When I remember that I was going through really kind of I don't know, I guess I had going through an existential crisis.
Okay.
And I remember that you kind of were that person that was there for me. So I thought I'd bring you on to kind of really just hear from other people, their processes, any tools and stuff that they've learned, and also talk about, our relationship and how that kind of helped me. But I guess in turn, we kind of help each other out.
Yeah.
Especially recently when I've been looking into this whole concept of the hero's journey, which is comes from Joseph Campbell's The Hero of a Thousand Faces. It's this whole concept of, going through cycles, and along the way we meet a helper. And that was quite profound for me, because I think, we all need help and support.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, number one, thank you.
You are welcome.
No, honestly, that was, to have you there in my life when I really needed it. I didn't really realize it. And, having you challenge me when I needed it, even though I didn't like it. Those moments when I was go away.
Yeah. I guess that's all. That's something that I learnt myself, is being able to recognize that what you want and what you need are two different things. And what you need, you may not always like. But I think for me, seeing somebody who may be searching for something and feeling like I may be able to offer an opinion or a perspective, it doesn't make it fact, but it's just, hey, have you thought of it like this? If it kind of opens up an element of truth for the individual, you can always know, because it kind of disturbs them a little bit. I find truth is never this enlightening thing where you go, oh wow, it all makes sense and everything is pure and perfect now. It's that's really annoyed me that has been said, because actually there's elements of truth that I resonate with and I wish I didn't. Now I have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So I think when you can see it, I think it's easier to see from the outside than it is to see from the inside, until I guess we go on our journeys and figure out our own process. So I think that's all it is when you see it. I'm always someone who likes to kind of offer, like I said, a perspective or an opinion that may make a difference or may not. You could have gone, you're wrong, and it could have been done, but clearly there was a part of yourself that was looking for a change, or else it wouldn't have had whatever impact you felt it had for you.
Do you know what though? I think I remember at that time though, I didn't realize, I remember you said to me you've been you can see it, because it's almost like you've been through it, and obviously we have different journeys. We all have our own journeys, and it's when no one is going to have the same thing. So you can be okay, I've experienced this before. You can see it in other people, but it's going to be different. But it's coming out of that myself. Now I get it. In the moment, I didn't get it. You would tell me these things, you would help me, and you kind of give me these kind of words of wisdom, and it's almost I could hear it, but I couldn't get it until I actually experienced it myself. And I think that's the key thing. We can give words of wisdom, we can have advice, we can have support, but it's all about, the individual needs to find it their own way, and they need to be able to experience it themselves to kind of really internalize it. Otherwise, it's going to go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, you have to want to change, not just like the idea of changing, but be willing to kind of go through whatever methods get you to the point that allow you to feel better about yourself. And there's that saying that I love, I I think I've said it before, two people were chilling in a park. One came up to a man who was by a tree and he was with his dog and the dog was whimpering. And he said, yo, why is your dog whimpering? And he said, oh, because he's sitting on a nail. And he goes, well, why doesn't he get up? And he goes, because the nail doesn't hurt enough. But once it hurts enough, we move. Do you know what I mean? And I think everyone just has their own kind of pain threshold. Some people, it's like, oh, no, ain't dealing with that. I'm out. Others will endure and endure until they get to a point where they're like, this is too much now. I need to do something.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to believe we all find our own way there, but it'd be crazy to believe that we could do it all by ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
No,
Like
yeah,
everyone
totally.
needs someone to kind of support them, and yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that's where it's hard. I think, well, for me, it was hard to have someone be like, okay, I want to help you, or I'm here to help you, but that help also looks like I'm going to challenge you. You know, because it's almost like we kind of see help as someone giving you a hand and be like, there you go. But it's not like that. It's like the help doesn't look like that, really. That's not help.
That's Hollywood help.
Yeah, that is not help at all. It's
Yeah.
like about, you know, planting like little small things, and eventually you kind of understand. And you know, going back to that whole dog sitting on a nail, it's almost like we're gonna keep coming across things that are gonna hurt, but it's like, how long are we gonna wait until we actually do something about it?
Yeah.
You know, like the first time that happened, it's like, okay, this happened. How many times is it gonna be until we actually learn our lessons, that when we feel the tiniest bit of pain, it's like, okay, here's time to do something about it. But it's almost like we let it get to the point where it's like I know, like I work, and then I get ill. Even though I know, and I tell myself, I need a break. But it's like, even now, I still know it, but I've got a lot better. I've got a lot better with it. But it's like, there's something within us. It's like, maybe it's society that tells us that we need to keep pushing on, or we feel like we're going to let others down, or whatever. Like, what makes us keep going? Keep enduring that pain, even though we know what we need to do to stop it.
I mean, I think you nailed it. I think it is the narratives that are installed before we know whether the thoughts we have are even our own. And that happens in a very early time in our lives. I think we mimic what we see around us, be that parents or friends or just what you see on TV. So when that happens, you go, oh, this is the way things are supposed to be, until you see another way, and then you go, oh, it can be different.
Yeah.
I think also, in addition to that, there is a thing about discomfort, and we try to avoid it, whereas we don't look at discomfort as a language that our body is offering to us to actually try and communicate. You know, it's like, if you train, there's a level of discomfort that you have to go through before you get stronger. Like when you go to the gym, you actually feel worse the next day, not better, but you know that there's a result you're trying to attain, so you can actually deal with the language of discomfort. However, there is also a discomfort that tells you, no, something's wrong, I need to sort this out. And because we don't spend time with that language, I think sometimes we endure more of, let's call it, the wrong discomfort for a long amount of time, until a part of us breaks down or shuts down.
No, yeah, totally. It's like, you know, one thing I've heard, like with anxiety, it's like when people, well, you know, anxiety is like, a lot of people say that they have anxiety these days. Like, and they say that anxiety is telling us we need to change, but we try so many things to suppress it. Yeah. We may avoid situations which, like, actually, you know, with like any fears with fears and anxiety, the more we avoid them, the more we fear it. You know, and it's actually like, I remember like something that came up at uni, that when they spoke about that, you know, like any fears and anxieties that we have, the fact if we do avoid it, our bodies basically learns that it's something to fear. Yeah. So we actually fear it more. You know, so it's like avoiding it is like what most people do these days, you know, whether it's like working too much, or like taking drugs or drinking or whatever else it is, becoming addicted to all sorts of things. And I think, you know, maybe this is possibly where a lot of addictions come from, because it's like, I mean, I'm not going to go too much into that because I don't know facts, but it's like, it's almost like it's filling a hole for us to try to cover up the hole that is caused from us having to deal with the discomfort.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And maybe an unfulfillment as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's so funny how a lot of the cliche sayings we know are pretty accurate. Like, the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Yeah.
Like, what you're afraid of is the idea of a thing before it's happened. And like you said, your body kind of goes, oh, we ran from that, clocked it, remember to do that. And I think we're all guilty of it. I sure as hell know I am. And what's difficult is deciding to stop running and turn around and go, no, actually, I'm going to figure out what that is. And that could be something external, or even worse, like in my opinion, something internal. When you have to look in and go, wow, that's me, I don't like that. Now I have to do something about it or avoid it and cover it up. Which one am I going to do? And I think the decision you make defines you. So I'm not saying either is right or wrong, but the fact is whether you choose to do something or not defines your character. So you have to ask, well, what kind of person do I want to be? Am I okay with this, you know?
No, yeah, and I think, do you know what, like the whole internal thing, I think, and this is where we're afraid, because, you know, talking a little bit about the concept of the shadow, it's like we all have a shadow, and it's those things that we put in the shadow, those parts of us that we don't like, that society rejects, that we reject, are the things that we need to face.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we need to face those parts of us before we can be whole, you know? And it's like, that's where there's a lot of fear. It's almost like I need to face myself. I need to like actually admit certain things to myself that I don't want to, you know?
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're afraid to face ourselves? Out of everybody, why are we afraid of ourselves? Maybe not afraid, but, or maybe we are. I don't know. What do you think that is?
Do you know what? I think like, do you know what it is? I think we are afraid of our full potential. I think that if we face ourselves, we actually can find that element of us that is going to be successful, is able to do all the things that we want to do, you know, but we're so used to living in a place where we don't have that, let's say, that having it, it's almost like life's going to change. Things are going to change. There's certain things I'm going to need to do or maintain. I need to reinvent myself, you know. I think there may be an element of that, because it's like, you know, when you've got like emails to send where, you know, you could possibly, like, I know for me, I even struggle sometimes sending an invoice. And it's like, that's going to pay me. Why am I struggling to send an invoice that's going to pay me? You know, and it's almost like those barriers, like, it's like, if I get paid, that means I'm going to have money, which means I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like a version of us that we don't know, which is kind of just like, it's mad when you think about it. Like, so, you know, the whole concept of the shadow, there's also the concept of this golden shadow. And the golden shadow, Carl Jung says that we're 90% golden shadow. So there's 10% of us that's like things that have been rejected. Well, actually, no, the 90% has also been rejected. Like, for example, you know, say you want to be an artist, but your parents tell you you can't be an artist, or you're not going to get paid if that happens, or whatever else it is, right? We reject that. And it's almost like if we want to be that, because that's almost part of our full potential, let's say, then we need to go into the depths and deal with everything that's in that space. And I think that's where maybe the fear is, and also fear of like judgment from others, letting people down, guilt, shame. It's like feelings that may be associated from that space that we've also shoved down there too.
Right.
You know, and I think, and I'm saying, I'm talking like maybe personally from myself, you know, like having my space, the 12th house, you know, it's like a lot of out there concepts. Like I do angelic Reiki energy healing. You know, I have a spiritual supply store. There's people doing tarot and astrology. You know, it's like concepts that for like hundreds of years, let's say, were like, you'll be called a witch if you were to be doing these things. And it's like, so it's almost like becomes like society says it's unacceptable. So we almost push it away. But I think for me, it was like, no, this is who I am. This is what I need to do. But to be able to do that really took a lot.
So then, would you say part of the fear is being ostracized from the group? And maybe that's an instinctive thing. I know we've spoken about that before, but it's like survival depends on us working together. Well, it has for a very long time. I guess now we live in spaces where we are able to be more autonomous by ourselves, but it's still an instinct to want to be a part of a group because that's how we've been able to grow. And if we're outside of that group, then there's a greater risk of us dying, do you know? And maybe that's a very built-in thing that even now, when it, as my granddad would say, it pays to be an individual, we still fear individuality, or we've been taught to fear individuality. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's like, it seems that within us is always something that wishes to try a thing that's slightly different from the norm. Everyone has the potential of doing something, and when I say something, I don't mean everyone's a runner or everyone's a dancer or an astronaut, but we have a thing that when we think about doing, we go, oh no, not me. Do you know? Why? Do you know, where does that come from? And is that because we genuinely believe we can't do it, or we don't want to try it and be proven right by our doubts? Or is it just because we feel like it's so different from what everyone else is doing that we go, I don't want to be left on the outside because I pursued something that actually would have made me quite happy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think definitely, you know, going back to like when we used to live in communities, you know, as you mentioned, we don't want to be ostracized. We want to be accepted, because if we weren't accepted and we went against the grain, let's say, then we would die. But it's almost like, okay, fast forward all this time, we're not going to die. So is it that we've still held that on, or is it that it's been reinforced? It's almost been reinforced over the years that, you know, like we are living in the age of individuality, right? We no longer, it's like community, which in my opinion is needed, because, you know, there's a lot that comes from helping each other out and support. And I do see it coming back. But, you know, we're living in the age of the individual. You know, I want to do this, I'm going to do this. Yet we still have a fear of being individual, because it's like, I think like deep down it's ingrained in us to be part of a community. So it's almost like the community is where we place ourselves. So if we place ourselves, I don't know, I'm going to live in this particular area, it's like you naturally adhere to what those people in that community are going to be, or whether, for example, certain industries that you work in. It's like there's like little like micro communities in everything that we're doing. You know, for example, I'm studying counselling. There's going to be a counselling community. You know, you're in the music industry. There's like circles within the industries. It's almost like micro communities in everything that we do, and it's like, you know, we almost have to kind of play by the rules. But then if we don't play by the rules, we need to own that, you know, this doesn't work for me, I'm going to go and do my own thing. And going to do your own thing is like starting a new community almost, because it's like people will follow this new thing. And am I going to be that person that wants to be followed? It's like there's a lot of responsibility that I think comes along with being an individual that we don't always realise.
So it's almost like, so maybe the fear sometimes is taking on the responsibility. Is, can I do this? And I guess, do you think even if you know you want to do something so badly, you can push that aside for the sake of staying a part of a community? Or do you feel like it will always get to a point at some point where you're like, no, I need to do it my way, or I need to try, or because I guess everyone is different. Some people are happy to be a part of that. And I think there are different people needed for different things. So I guess what I'm asking is, can you see your place in, out, or within the realm of society or humanity? I don't know which one it is, but do you know what I mean? It's like as an example, sometimes the rules don't make sense to me. Some do, some really don't. And for that reason, I look at things a little differently, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it that way. What are the other options?
Do you know what? I don't know the quote totally, but there's a quote by Picasso that's like, learn the rules like a pro and break them like an artist.
That's dope.
And I don't know it totally, but it's something like that. And I think, you know, if we do learn the rules, so we know, okay, this is how other people playing the game. And then we're just like, no, I'm going to do it my way, in a creative way. And I do really like that quote. You know, I could have it totally wrong, so don't totally quote me on that. But it's something along the lines of that. And I think, you know, like, for example, I struggle with following set rules, let's say, from other people, because there's always things that don't make sense to me. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't all make sense to me, right? There's going to be, like, I am one of those people that kind of goes through life taking bits and pieces from different places that make sense and kind of creating my own understanding of whatever it is. You know, like, even like what we're doing here on Earth, it's like there's a million different plausible explanations. It depends what you subscribe to of what you want to believe. And I just kind of take a piece here, piece here, piece here, piece here to kind of make sense. Because I guess, you know, essentially we do create our own reality. So whatever's going on in my mind is my own reality. But, you know, it does take a lot of, I think, self-value, self-awareness, self-discipline, you know, to be able to do these things. Because, you know, there may be a point where you can be like, oh no, I'm scared, I'm gonna run back to my job that I'm comfortable with, or I'm just gonna give up. Like, there's been times I'm just like, oh fuck this, I can't bother to do this anymore. Like, I just want to get a job where I don't have to like try and put myself out there. Like, why am I even doing this? But then I realized, like, no, like, I don't want that. I don't want to subscribe to the same things that are being done before. Like, I mean, we're all creators. We can all create, you know. And I think that there's something special about creating your day to day, you know, what you choose to do.
So then why do you entertain the thought sometimes of, oh, couldn't I just get a job and just make it simpler? Where does that come from?
Convenience.
Okay. So then what is so comfortable about convenience, if anything?
Do you know what? I think, you know, let's go back to job. I think money is a big thing. You know, money now, I understand, is a tool. It's a tool that we need, because without money, there's certain things that we can't get. And yes, I think if I didn't have money, I could probably figure out a way to like really like to live without it. But money's a big thing. And I think I know in the past, I've associated value with money. And, you know, I've like, okay, the more money you have, the more successful that you are. I now know that isn't really the case, but I still think that there's this like lingering thing there, you know. So it's like, if I just get a job, it's just easier because I'll have the money, I'll be able to live without having to think about how am I going to pay my rent every month, you know. I'm able to go on holidays, how I can go on holiday, I can buy a car that isn't going to break down, you know. But it's like, whenever I try to do these things, it just never works. It's like, it just never works out, and I kind of go back onto another track again.
Right.
You know, and I think money is a big thing because we need it. We do need it. And I think that is where a lot of, let's say, the fear can come from, of like doing your own thing, because it's a struggle to have no money. You know, especially living in London, and like, I mean, we can do it. We can, but it's not like we're living on farms where we grow our own vegetables and we have chickens that give us eggs, and like we have a stream down the road that we can just get fresh water from. You know, we have to pay bills. You know, so it's like, if we choose to live in certain spaces, we have to almost play by certain rules, and it becomes more of a struggle to not. Yeah,
it's interesting. I still say, like, London is a beautiful place to live in if you know how to live in it. And that's the thing, is it's not just, it doesn't just give you what you see, you have to know how to play the game. The problem with the game is, how long do you want to play it for? And when you're playing it, are you able to be yourself and play that game? And I think maybe that's where some of the struggles stem from sometimes, is you can see methods that will give you what you need to then get to where you may want to go, but are you okay with doing it that way? You know, are you okay with that process? Something that I'm very, very kind of passionate about is my paradigms, you know, things that I feel like define me, my rules, my foundations. And I think sometimes in the world that we've created, we value the less valuable things more than the valuable things, like how you treat somebody, being able to, you know, gestures of service. And I'm not saying that everyone has to give away what they have, but sometimes just listening is a gesture of service. But we feel like if things aren't attached to some kind of tangible currency, that we are wasting our time. And I do wonder sometimes, for me, these are just my thoughts, if that stems from this kind of consumerist nature that has kind of evolved to the point of nearly eating itself. It's so funny. Lauryn Hill has this line in a tune she wrote called, I think it's called Consumerism. And I think it's the opening line. She says, consumerism running through us like a tumor in them. And when I heard that, I was like, wow. Because what it made me realize is this thing grows. The more it's fed, the more it grows. And it made me realize that not only is it being fed, but it changes the way you see things, and it's never fulfilled. So if you're consistently consuming, if you're consistently trying to attain, and money is the primary way that you see that happening, then you emit happiness. You have temporary happiness, but it's never long lasting. You are never in a space of balance, and more importantly, you're wasting the most valuable currency you have, which is time and life. And you hear this so many times when you hear people who are at the latter end of their life, and they say, I wish I didn't spend so much time stressing or working or worrying about money. I wish I'd spent more time developing relationships or seeing my family or traveling. All the things that some do take money, but are the things we don't even consider. And I think maybe that has kind of created this space where there are things that our being feels like it wants to gravitate towards, but our mind pulls us back because of the picture that's been painted in front of us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it's almost like, going back to the whole paradigms thing, it's like, how often do people think about their core values and beliefs?
Yeah.
I remember when I was asked that and I had to actually think about it, I was like, what are my values? And it's like, I think once we identify those, then we can see when we're doing things that go against it.
Yeah.
And until we know what that is, because when we do have our core values and beliefs, for example, kindness, being kind to someone, supporting people, the acts of service, like I really do believe that, as humans, it's part of our nature to give acts of service to each other. Going back to the community days, we're supposed to support each other in all the ways, because we can't do everything.
Yeah.
We need each other for the world to go round, so it's an innate part of us. So I think naturally we get drawn back to what our core values and beliefs are, even though we don't know them.
Yeah.
So when we are going against them, we feel it. There's like an incongruence. It's like, this is what I believe and this is what I feel and this is what I value, but I'm doing that. And then once you actually know that you're going against it, it's like, that's where life can get really difficult, because it's like, this is totally going against my values, but I'm just doing it for what? For money? Is it for money? What is it actually for? Why do we go against our core values and beliefs,
I think part of that, in my opinion, is we go against our core values and beliefs because we haven't spent time with our core values and beliefs. I think when you really sit with yourself and ask yourself why you even have these beliefs, you start to paint a picture of yourself. And I take that back, you don't start to paint a picture of yourself. You start to chisel away at the rock and discover yourself. And I think when you can see who you are, it's easier to stick to those beliefs. When you have difficulty seeing who you are and valuing who you are, then it's easy for your core values and beliefs to be pushed aside for something that you believe is more valuable. But like I said before, I genuinely feel that the most valuable currency in the world is your life, is your time.
Yeah.
And even when you think about money, all money is quantified elements of your time. You know what I mean? Like tangible things.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend to make that much money?
Yeah,
well, how much are you valued? Because
Yeah.
what I may charge to do a masterclass or a recording session is not the same as Quincy Jones. And just because I think I may be valued at that, it doesn't mean I am. So then I have to think about, well, then how do I acquire that value within this game without losing my core values? And that's the kind of, I think, thing we're dealing with all the time, is trying to attain a balance.
Yeah.
Trying to not well, I want to be this, so anything in the way gets mowed over, but also not letting yourself be stepped on. You know, I think there is a middle ground, and I feel like you have to be able to set boundaries. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a part of your values. Like, I'm not allowing that. That's not cool. And to be okay with dealing with someone who doesn't respect that in a way that lets them know, okay, I understand that if I do this, this will be your response.
Yeah.
And for that, whether I like you or not, at least I respect you.
Yeah. No, do you know what?
Yeah.
I think time, like going back to time, like I remember, you know, 5 years ago when I almost sold my business and having a conversation with you, and you're just like, why are you doing this? And for me, it was like I needed more time. And I think sometimes we don't realize that how valuable time is.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, and it's like, you know, we can have these conversations, and we can have these conversations about boundaries and whatever. And I think, you know, I think we are starting to talk about these more amongst each other, and I think this is why I'm here right now talking about this, because we all go through this. You know, this is why the name of the podcast is I'm Lost Too, because I feel like we all kind of get to those points where we're like, what's going on? You know, and for me, time was one of my biggest things. Like, how do I manage my time so I can put those boundaries in place to be able to do the things that I need to do? You know, because without that, I'm lost. I'm literally like in a forest running around. That's how I used to picture it. I'm running around in a forest, don't know what I'm doing, because it's just one big mess of me doing things for other people. You know, and it's like, but what about me? And I think for the what about me requires me time. You know, like I used to have Stella days where I would take myself, I mean, which I need to get back onto that, because that's one thing I've stopped doing, and I really felt it. You know, it was Stella day. It was like, today is for me. You know, if I fancy seeing someone, cool, but I'm making no plans today. You know?
How did you feel during those days, your Stella days?
I felt free. You know, I felt like a child. I felt like a child. I would, you know, do the things that like I would do, like go to the park. I would just like randomly go to the park, or I'd go and read a book in a cafe, or I would like go and have food that I liked to do. It was just like basic things, and I just felt free. I felt like this is a time for me. You know, it's about like, you know what it is as well? It's the relationship with yourself. It's like a space for you to actually be with yourself without anything else coming in, because we can have time off but spend it with others. It's like, but then you've neglected you. I feel like you still neglected you.
Being present is what you are.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, I mean, and it was just like such a valuable thing, I think, when you learn about, you know, even just one day for you. And like, I get it. We can all say, oh, I haven't got time, I've got responsibilities. But we need to make the time. We need to put those boundaries in. And it's difficult when we really think about it. You know, boundaries is quite a key topic right now. Because we've realised that a lot of us didn't have them.
Well, a lot of those boundaries have been crossed.
Yeah.
Do you know, globally, societally, is that right? Societally? I think that's how you say it. Within society.
Yeah.
I think this is something that I'm quite passionate about, is actually looking at how technological advancements of the world have actually have both progressed and taken some of our humanity away from us. You know, it's like, because we are able to access each other so quickly, because we are able to know more about each other, we encroach on boundaries that maybe wouldn't have been stepped on before, you know, and
like WhatsApp blue tick. Like, right? It's just like, do you mean people get so stressed about that?
Yeah. You know? Do you know what? WhatsApp blue tick is one, but I just thought about the Instagram blue tick. It's like, imagine getting a blue tick to officially prove that you are yourself. Like, that's mad. For me, that's like, oh, so someone else tells me that I'm officially, not only am I officially this person, but I'm officially this person offering influence to people. Like, who decided the guidelines for that?
Yeah.
You know? More importantly, why do we hold those guidelines so important, so high up? I think part of that is, again, not wanting to be left out. Man, if I could be there and seen like that, I could do this and I could get that. And I think anytime the self is the primary focus, I think we miss the point on a lot of things. I think you need to take time for yourself, but that time offers then the skills that you feel really represent you to others. Do you know what I mean? So
it's about integrating the self with the greater.
precisely.
Like, it's like getting to the point where we are self-aware that I am me. You know, I have boundaries. I have my right to feel like this. You know, really understand the self, but acknowledging that we are part of something bigger, something greater. You know, we are part of a community, of a world, of like
interdependence. That's the word, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Not independence or dependence, interdependence.
Yeah.
Where you are both an individual, but an individual part of a community.
Yeah.
And a valued member of community, both by yourself and by, I guess, the people you occupy the space of. Do you think that people are okay with stepping out onto their own path? Or do you think people like the idea of it? Because you see a lot of people who are like, I'm doing me, this is it, or the famous meme, you know, stepping into 2020, whatever. Yeah. And then it's like, whoop, back where I am. Okay, maybe next year.
Yeah, I think people like the idea of it because what that reality actually is takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of like, you know, looking at ourselves and, you know, seeing that it's not all roses. You know, there's going to be parts of myself that I'm not going to like. And let's be like, yeah, this is me, I'm going to do me. It's like, are you doing you? Are you doing all of you? Or are you doing one part of you? Yeah. You're neglecting another part of you.
The part you like.
Yeah, you're only doing the part that you like, and that's not sustainable, you know?
Yeah.
Like, going back to, you know, like, duality. It's all about, you know, the yin, the yang. There's, what was it? So it's like one part represents the, you know, the inner world, and then there's the outer world, which is also masculine and feminine, and it's stronger with each part in each part, you know, and it's like all about the balance. And if we are going to go forward and be like, yeah, I only like this part of me and I'm not going to deal with the other part of me, then there's always going to be something that's just going to be nigging at you always, you know. I don't think we're ever going to feel that peace, because for me, let's say for argument's sake, happiness for me personally is that feeling of calm balance, and that space, you know, you get like that. It doesn't stay. You know, it's just like, but knowing that feeling is almost like, I get it. And then the rest of it is like this. It's just life, because we're humans, you know? We are humans. We're going to go through all these different experiences, all the ups and downs. It's part of being life as a human. And I always say, I'm a spiritual being living life as a human, having a human experience. And for me, that's just how I go forward in life. And having the human experience means experiencing all that being human is. And that's all of the emotions, you know? Like, having to, you know, I think you said to me before, you know, feelings are like, it's motion. What was it again? Like, feelings in motion, it's emotion.
Oh.
In movement. Feelings in movement is emotion.
Energy in motion.
Energy in moment.
Yeah, I got that from Tony Robbins said that.
Yeah. And same with feelings. It's like feelings in motion is emotion. You know, and I remember that stuck with me as well, because it's like the emotion is something that we project out into the world about what we're feeling. So we need to acknowledge that. Yeah. You know, what am I feeling? And what am I feeling takes work, because that means sitting with yourself and reflecting. Yeah. That means, how am I feeling? That's asking yourself those questions, or having someone else ask you those questions. You know, but it's about actually sitting with what that actually means. And if we don't sit with it and we let it pass, you know, then we're never going to learn the lessons that we should be learning to kind of like to integrate, to be part of a whole in ourselves. You know, that's
awareness. It's awareness. And going back to balance, I think it's, in addition to balance, it's balance and motion, because I think we've spoken about this before, is you have up and down, good and bad, whatever you want to call it, but it's like, it does this all the time. It's moving up and down, and there are points where right there it's balanced and then it goes. And I think awareness is about being able to slow down that center point a little bit more, so you can stay in spaces of balance just for a little bit longer. It's never permanent, but then I guess what you learn is that peace isn't the destination. Peace is the process. It's the process of actually accepting that motion is continuous, because change, the only two things that I found that are inevitable in life is death and change. At some point you will die and things will move on. So in whichever order. And if you can accept those things, then firstly, you value time more. And secondly, you don't put yourself in a space of stress or anxiety when things begin to shift, because instinctively we are habitual creatures. We like things to kind of repeat. We go, okay, we know how this works, but things change. You know, we grew up in an era where when you done your maths exam, they would say, well, you need to know your mental arithmetic because you can't walk around with a calculator in your pocket. Now we can.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the system changes, our psyche changes, our spirituality changes. And the more accepting we are of change, the more we surrender to the kind of ocean of the universe, call it that, I think the easier it is to ride the wave. Because fighting a wave is hard.
Yeah.
So
you can't fight it.
You can't fight the wave. You ride the wave. We don't fight the wave. But to ride it, you have to accept that you are not in control of all of it. And I think that's the hard bit, is relinquishing control. We believe that we are actually in control of all of this. But as we know, we are a very, very small matter of energy, like confined into this body, that is a part of a bigger thing, floating around on a big ball of water, spinning around the sun, flying through the universe. Like, our problems ain't that deep, but they are still our problems.
Yeah,
and it's kind of finding that balance. Do you know what I mean?
It is our experience.
Precisely.
You know? And it's like knowing that this is our experience, right? We're shaping our experience, which is hard to kind of come to terms with, you know, because, you know, there was something that came up the other day about us being able to have the ability to choose. And, you know, someone mentioned, you know, oh, not everyone has the choice. And they struggled with the word choice and choose. And I can see, because, you know, some people are in situations where, you know, are like horrible. And it's like, you know, they didn't choose to be there. And I think that the choice comes from how we perceive it. You know, how do we perceive this situation? How are we going to, you know, create something that is going to let our being, our physical body be okay with where I'm at right now? In the most, you know, horrendous situations that we can be in, you know, like for example, you know, you hear about Holocaust survivors that created fantasies so they could get through it, you know, and they were able to, you know, almost disassociate, you know, they were there, but they kind of like create a different perception of their reality to be able to be okay. And we can do that. We have the power. Like, our minds are such a powerful thing that we are able to create our own realities. Yeah. You know,
it's interesting actually. Even with what you just said, is there is I believe he was a therapist or clinical psychologist. I can't remember his title, but Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, and he developed a therapy called logotherapy, and it is the idea of I think he says. This isn't exact, but he said when all the freedoms are taken away from you, the last freedom you have is the freedom to choose how you respond. And from there, he kind of built this kind of system of logotherapy because he was an Auschwitz survivor. And this kind of idea of actually the space between a thing happening and the choice of your response, that space in between is yours. It's how do you choose to respond, you know? Do you react? Or do you actually go, this is actually what I'm going to do? It's funny because there's a Kendrick Lamar quote from one of his songs. Which song is it? I think it's DNA. And he says something like, I just meditate and contemplate and off your fucking head. And it was like, okay, so the action to knock you out was a choice, not a response. And I was like, logotherapy, maybe. But it's this idea that, you know what I mean? Instead of just being a reactive creature, you can actually like be aware of your responses. You have the freedom to choose. Even if the choice you make is a difficult one, it's still your choice. And within that, I think, is the foundations of a kind of autonomous self.
Yeah, and like, you know, that space is, I guess, created by slowing down. You know, we need to slow down so we can almost like pause and be like, okay, what's going on here? You know, obviously in real time, but if we're constantly, our mind's going to keep going busy, quick, we almost don't give ourselves that space, so we are reactive.
But those are the Stella days.
Yeah.
That is the time to slow down, isn't it? That is, because if you think about even slowing down that time, and like thinking of time as like states of consciousness, you know, the future being the anticipation of what is to come, and the past being almost the fear of, or the regret of things that have gone. It's like, if you are able to stay present, which is not easy, I'm not going to say that, boom, you can do it like that, then what you have is a longer space of time, you know? I always think about when I was riding a bicycle and I remember going, like hitting into something, going straight over the handlebars, and it's like everything slowed down. I could see the ground, and I could see either losing my teeth or rolling. I remember seeing a person to my side, and I remember seeing my bike twisting, and all of that happened very slowly because my awareness amplified. So I think we are able to kind of slow down these states of consciousness, or use these states of consciousness to slow down time, to give us what we need to just be in the world. Do you know what I mean? And figure out who you are in the world. When you live by the rules of others, you have to move at their pace, and that means that never gives you time to learn how to crawl, stand, walk, and run. Do you know? There may be bits before the running that you need to figure out as an individual. And if you can't have the time to do that, then no matter how far you go in life, you remember these things that never were completed, and they become midlife crises, or, do you know what I mean, consumerist shopping sprees to the point where you can put yourself into bankruptcy. Like, there's all sorts of ways that we try and fill these holes rather than going back in.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, the time that we spend on ourselves, you know, and let's say self-care, you know, it is self-care. Giving ourselves the time is caring for yourself. And I think living in such a busy society where everything's bam, 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 quick, 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 what's next? Like, I look at my schedule now and I'm full. And it's like, I'm fully aware of what I'm doing to myself. And it's like, even though I'm aware of it, I still do it because it's just habits. It's habits. And, you know, learning to break out of that habit takes time. You know, like we can sit here and we can talk about, you know, certain things that we've learned and what needs to be done. But, you know, actually doing it and the reality of it, it's a long process, you know. And I think, you know, people need to be aware that it's not just going to happen overnight. It's going to change, and it's like slowly, like step by step, so we can reach, you know, that's where I want to be. It's not just going to be like, okay, cool, self-care, everything's cool, I know my purpose, I'm just going to do it now. You know, we're going to keep falling back into our old habits, so it's just practice. We've always got to keep practicing our new habits and behaviors. Like, I need to continuously have Stella days, otherwise I'm going to forget about Stella days.
So it's almost like, I like to say, having a contract for yourself. You know, I know that if I don't train, if I don't get to do like my martial arts practice, if I don't read, then I'm going to have days where I'm going to get a bit twitchy, because I feel like the time, this valuable currency I have, has been spent on everybody else except me.
Yeah, no,
so,
that's exactly it, you know, giving your energy and your time, because energy as well, like, you know, we run low, giving it to someone else, I think is where the frustrations come in, and it's just like,
when it's not in equal turn, because I don't mind giving, but I need to know that I've at least given some to myself.
Yeah.
And depending on how you look at it, for me, that's love. Do you know what I mean? You have to love yourself to even know how to love somebody else, do you know?
Yeah.
Or else what you're offering is their idea of love, not what you could truly offer, which may be something they never even fathomed was something that was useful for them.
Yeah. But you know what? On that note, you know, we're coming to the end of our podcast, first episode. It's been great, you know. I've just kind of gone with it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it does come back to self-love. You know, for me, that's one of my goals. It's like, I say it's a goal. It's like a point of like, does this keep in line with my self-love? You know. And yeah, I just want to thank you for coming here and just being part of this.
No problem. Anytime.
Cool. Thank you. Peace.